Hello and welcome to Media Lit, where we treat each piece of media like great literature. I'm your host, Randy Elaine, and joining me, as always, is the wonderful Kris Ingersoll, who I have not seen on the screen in front of me for well over a week. Kris, how are you doing?
So good, Randy. Come on, so good, man. You're right. It's been like, I don't know how many days that we haven't podded together, but you were also recently on a trip with the family, which means
Mm-hmm.
we weren't chatting as much. To let the podlings into the world behind the pod world, Randy and I are good buds, and we stay chatting off the pod. So I felt your absence in my life, my friend, and I'm glad you're back. Really good to be with you tonight.
Yeah, I felt yours as well. It's a more complete life when you're in it, Kris. But speaking of making things complete, I don't want to play around with tonight's topic because we've got a really special show planned for
Yeah.
you. Um, every once in a while, I will indulge myself and dig into a property that I really care about. Kris will entertain me. We have a whole series on Doctor Who, for instance, which is on hiatus until a new streamer picks up those Doctor Who episodes again. But Kris loves me so much; he is willing to be a test subject. And tonight, Kris is going to help me embrace my love of the television show Severance. If you listen to this podcast, you know that I wrote episode by episode reviews and theories for season 2 of Severance in recent months. And I said, hey, Kris, there's a really great season 2 episode of Severance. You've never watched the show. Can I use you as my guinea pig once again to test how someone would interact with this show if season 2, episode 7, Chikhai Bardo were their very first episode of Severance? So that is the goal. And Kris, we're going to get into how you responded to the episode a little bit later. But can you just give me like a quick, non-spoilery sense of like what this was like for you, jumping in with no knowledge? I know you even skipped the previously on.
Yeah, I skipped the recap. I didn't skip the opening credits. I wanted to be brought into the art of the show immediately, and that's how I felt. I felt like I was walking into a live art exhibit as much as I was watching a
Hmm.
piece of visual storytelling media. Right, every frame was meticulous and beautiful. Costuming was uh, equally taking. Right, like your eye just wants to trace every little thing that's on the screen. But most of the experience was one of unmooring. I
Mm.
my own reality felt less less tangible the more I watched this episode because I couldn't figure out for the life of me what the heck was going on. I could perceive the heaviness of the relationships that I could see on screen. I could see the deep weight behind whatever
Mm.
was happening, but without any of the real details, all I could do was kind of go along the ride, embrace the mystery, and be intrigued. So it was somewhat like watching Black Mirror or The Twilight Zone, but
Hmm.
without the resolution, right? Like there was no reveal at the end. There was no bringing me into the secret that was unlocking the whole episode. So I left it saying, "God damn, I need to start watching this show and fast." So it was a tremendous experience despite the lack
Yeah.
of context. The credits were very striking throughout, visually surreal. But when
Yeah.
the final moment is like a face crawling out of the back of the head, I felt primed, at least. I'll say that. I felt primed for whatever the show was gonna be.
So we're gonna get to climb inside of your head as we move forward. But I didn't just do this for self-indulgence. We also tried this experiment because we've got a really cool guest lined up for tonight. Uh, we are welcoming the very actor who portrayed the Mark Watcher, as he is named in the credits of this episode, Eric J. Carlson. He is a stand-in for Adam Scott on Severance. He does all sorts of other work on set. I recently had the pleasure of interviewing him for the Pop Break, so you can find that interview on the Pop Break website. But first, I just want to say, Eric, thank you so much for sitting down with me again. We are so excited to have you. And how have you been? How's work life treating you?
I've been great. I got a new 5 days of doing something for the next 5 weeks, and I don't know, sometimes these things all blur together. I don't even remember the name of the show, but they're like, "Oh, ready for that 5 days?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot about that," do that. But yeah, running around doing this is when the shows are down, I do a little bit of everything, a lot of driving and like we've discussed and, doing the, with the old cars, the JFK Jr., American Horror Story. They're making one on JFK Jr.'s. I do work on that a lot,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
driving my set 90s car, 87 car, whatever. But, yeah, it's always something to do.
as much as listeners might want to hear Kris and I chat with you about this episode, I think a lot of people are going to tune in because they're going to be curious about you and your experience on Severance. Um, if I had to simplify your role down to one thing on this particular show, yeah, stand in for Adam Scott, I think covers a lot of it. But we were talking off the pod, and you were saying people don't always understand what that job means or like all the things that branch out from it. So I was wondering if you could maybe take a moment to tell us a little bit about, how you see your role on set and what makes this Severance set so unique.
They embrace the fact that I am a utility guy, that
Mhm.
I am a stand-in, I am his photo double, I do look enough like him to be able to wear his clothes and go away for 3 days upstate and do something
Mhm.
while he's doing something else, or, I can drive. I'm a trained stunt driver, so I did a stunt for him driving. I can do a whole bunch of different things. I can act, I can do off-camera lines, which I do a lot. I don't like talk about too much. But, when they need, somebody can't be there and we have to go back and reshoot something, do camera tests and do crazy stuff with that. With the episode that we're speaking of, it took us about a year to do that crazy shot, which we'll get into. I do a lot of different things, and this is probably the I wanna say the first place that's really embraced it, but that it's embraced it in this way, that know that they can trust me to do all these things, and it's really kinda without question, especially at this point. And they, it it's welcoming. I mean, there are other shows that do take advantage of all my skills, but this is a little different. This is, Ben says, "I wanna put you on camera," and he knows I can do it, you know? He's not asking me, "Can you go audition?" Because he's seen me running around doing all these
Mhm.
things and doing these off-camera lines and doing these rehearsals. Because the stand-in is basically you doing the rehearsal. The first team, Adam Scott will do the scene, and then he'll go to hair and makeup, and I will do the scene over and over again. What he just did, I'll take the notes, and, we'll do the lighting and do the cameras and do the camera work, or and, whatever. Um, and then we pass it back to Adam, and he does the scene. I have to give a shout out to talking about people appreciating my casting director, the Delisi Creative Casting. These guys have been with me since Uncut Gems. I was photo doubling constantly for Uncut Gems with the rings. There's a lot of hand doubling. We would do a scene, and they would run away and I would have to finish and do it. And then I did a stunt double, did a fight. I had to do nude, whatever, bunch of crazy stuff. Adam and Deb Delisi early on had realized that, that I could do all these things, and then they would
Mhm.
put me in as a stand-in to a job like like Severance, knowing that they weren't sending over just a good stand-in, they were sending over
Yep.
somebody that was capable of all these things.
Mhm.
Then, of course, they do take advantage of that, and then, of course, including up into the Beast in Me was another one of their shows. They send me over like, "Well, Eric, do you think you could do this for, Matthew Rhys?" And I'm like, "Oh, let me see, let me do my hair a little differently." "Yeah, yeah, we can do."
Mhm.
And then they know that they're gonna send over somebody who can do these different things, and then, of course, they give me principal role and all that stuff too.
Yeah. No, I think that was such a perfect explanation. Like, I think back to when I got a chance to interview you. You really gave me some great insight into that. Like I asked you a couple of questions about Adam Scott, and your answers were incredible because what you really wanted to talk about was just how you see your role in making the performance experience smooth for him. Like, it's not about schmoozing,
Yes.
it's not about kicking
No.
back, it's about, like, I wanna make sure every prop is in the right place at the right time. I want to make sure that he can come in and perform, and that was such a selfless way to answer that question, and to hear you with the stunt driving, all this other stunt work that you do. Whatever industry you're in, people appreciate folks who can step in and make things happen. So, much respect to you.
I think they do. Yeah, I appreciate that. No, that is what I do. I mean, my brain, we're all a little OCD or a lot OCD over at Severance, but in my brain, it's like, if I get up and I start to walk away and then they say pictures up, it means they're gonna go right to picture. They don't need to see
Yep.
him in the seat. They don't need to
Mhm.
go run through it. Everything is ready to go. So that's my day is going, not going, hey, what are you up to, Adam, or whoever, Matthew or whatever, which is fun. They're all wonderful people, believe me. But it's I just I like doing what I do.
Well, Eric, before we get into the episode proper, something we've changed with our format in season 2 is we're trying to make sure we give all of our guests a shot, like right up front, to plug any work they have coming up. Where can folks find you and support you?
Okay. Well, yeah, I do have a short film called Forever Home, which is produced and starring my wife, Bonnie Hopper, who is actually an attorney for the state of New York. But in her part time, she, stars and produces our short films. And to my horror, I'm looking up on IMDb uh, Pro and looking at my star meter and looking at her star meter has shot way past mine. And I'm like, "What the fuck?" She's doing this part-time and, whatever. Um, yeah, she's awesome. She's a great actor, and we are both actually running for the New York local board. My goal is to bring productions back to the United States, back to New York, and that's nothing else matters after that. Healthcare. If you don't have a job, you're not gonna get healthcare. You're not gonna get
Yep.
lunch penalties, wardrobe penalty, whatever the heck everybody's talking about. We have to bring it back to the United States and New York local. But yeah, we're all trying to get things going uh that's about it. But yeah, the Netflix, the Claire Danes thing is on Netflix. That's coming up. Co-star role with Matthew Rhys and Jonathan Banks from Breaking Bad. That was a thrill because I got to do a sequence of basically 2 days of hanging out with Jonathan Banks because he was, guest star.
Too cool.
And Casey Connors was also my co-star of that, and she's doing a one-woman show now called Sparkle Duck, which I saw a couple of weeks ago, running around New York dealing with that, and it's absolutely amazing, a theater piece. So but yeah, I'm Eric J. Carlson on Instagram. And Bonnie, what is your Instagram?
So it is Bonnie C. Harper, but it's also Crypto's mom. So
Yes.
Nice, love that.
Just mom. Yeah, we're big animal fans, and that's what the Forever Home is about. Canine dementia.
Well, I can attest to the fact that both Eric and Bonnie are great Instagram follows. You can check out some shots of the late crypto, and get a sense for how wonderful he was. Um, and Kris and I have an extra reason to be excited. You're working with Matthew Rhys. One of our favorite shared shows is a little animated Disney show called The Owl House,
Oh,
in which Matthew Rhys is the voice of the main antagonist.
he's amazing. Him and Adam are, it sounds silly to say they're the two best guys ever. I've worked with a million people. They are unique. They are funny. They are pleasant. They are two unique guys. And I actually said that to Matthew. I said, dude, you two are two peas in a pod. They're just brilliant. They're brilliant dramatic actors,
Yeah.
yet so funny and so pleasant. It's like you just don't see that, you know.
We are about to talk about a multiple Emmy nominated episode of television that Eric was a part of. We're going to get a great behind the scenes look. So we are set up for success. But Kris, we love to get things started with a mini game here. So let's break the ice and get into our media lit episode.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't get started without an icebreaker, get everybody warmed up, get the creative juices flowing a little bit.
Mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm.
again, I only partially know what the words that I'm saying even mean here, but bear with me, podlings. I'm going to go around the horn here asking each panelist what fear they might have to face on the testing floor. And so, Eric, we're going to go right to you. What's the fear that you might have to face on the testing floor?
I'm sorry to say, but it's probably would be sitting in a theater. Movie theater or a theater or a play theater. It used to be so much fun to go to these. Now everybody, I literally cringe. Everybody's on their phone, they're making noise, they're kicking the chair. Even
Mm,
Broadway, it's like I think my hell would be, sometimes I just gotta do everything I can to get through that, those 2 hours, and I'm like, this isn't the way I felt like it was growing up, and it's a nightmare, whatever. I don't know. I think that would be my worst fear,
Hmm.
to have that repeated over and over and over again.
I can relate to that. That is perfectly tangible, all those feelings. I get that. Um, yeah, I don't tons of people around you, less control over their behavior and how it's impacting your
Yeah.
experience. I don't love it. Randy, what about you, man? What's your fear?
Well, I thought about this one long and hard. I thought about doing something, kind of cute, maybe fear of heights. In this episode, one of the many rooms, we've got Deacon in a plane experiencing extreme turbulence. You've got Robbie Benson sort of like throwing himself around the cabin in this fear. But we also get into like some deeply personal psychological trauma. So because this episode is so heavy and I had just finished my rewatch, uh, I uncovered a recurring dream that I have. It's not always the exact same dream, but I think it's rooted in my Catholic upbringing and my Catholic guilt.
Hmm.
And that is, I have had multiple nightmares that are not graphic visually, but in these dreams, someone wants me to like keep a secret for them, like covering up like a murder or
Mm.
something like that. So I think my like devious testing room experience would be like someone putting me into the psychological trauma of expecting me to like hide something that I don't think is defensible and to be constantly stuck in that, always waking up back in that moment in that trauma. That would be something maybe they'd be compartmentalizing on the testing floor.
I mean, first of all, just great psychological angle you took there. That's unnerving.
Mm,
My answer was gonna be quite similar to Eric's
yeah.
because, I suffer from tremendous noise anxiety, and so I was
Mm.
picturing something to do with, like, maybe it's like a club-like atmosphere, there's lights and this pounding bass, but I've pivoted. I've pivoted because I was able to get in touch with a very real experience that I had and I would hate to live through again. Um, you're exiting the subway at Grand Central, and you are several floors below ground, and it's hot, and
Mm.
it's crowded, and you are desperate to reach the fresh air at ground level, and each escalator just leads to another escalator and another escalator, and you're surrounded by people who are pushing and shoving and shouldering. You just want to get to fresh air, and you can't stop breathing this thick, hazy, underground, stifling pollution. And it's in you and it's on you, and all you want to do is scream and run, but you can't because you're surrounded and it's suffocating. July in New York City can be a challenging time. August as well. Um, yeah, I don't have a claustrophobia or anything, but sometimes the anxiety of very, very many people around me, again, who I'm not in total control of their behaviors, especially when I'm experiencing a separate kind of anxiety, like maybe I'm too hot and I need fresh air. Dangerous combination. So I think having to live through that
Whew.
again and again on the testing floor would be my challenge.
Chris, I once had a horrible experience on the Boston Orange line on the way home from a Bruins game. Uh, the train stopped partway through our journey, and they came on and told us that we all had to evacuate the train. And when I stepped out of the train and looked down to the exit, there were just like plumes of smoke
Oh dear.
filling the tunnel. And I was looking around for like an emergency exit, and the only exit was like through the smoke.
Mm,
So I had to like take a deep breath and get the heck out of there. Luckily, I think I only had one flight to go, not multiple escalators. But yeah,
horrifying.
I'm feeling your pain, man.
Uh, just being, like, 10 feet from the actual platform, but the train has stopped and it won't go forward, and they won't tell you why it has stopped, and the platform's
Yeah.
right there, but it won't move, and you can't get off the train.
Whew.
Also horrifying.
Yeah, I do that every day. I try to avoid subways, and you can't, and
Yeah.
I'll drive to crazy places where I shouldn't be because I could just take the subway. I'm like, I just can't.
Yeah, I lived in New York City a couple of years. I was in Queens working in
Yeah.
Manhattan, and, yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful place to be. It's for me, a challenging place to live specifically because of the nature of that subway travel, but hey,
I
yeah.
agree.
Well, we've broken the ice. We talked about this testing floor. As Chris articulated, he doesn't know what the heck I'm talking about when I mention the testing floor. And quite frankly, no Severance fans knew what the heck I was talking about until this episode aired. Chris, that elevator with that red down arrow is one of the most iconic pieces of Severance imagery dating back to
Mm.
season one. So I jumped you all the way to the most massive reveal of the series to date. We both love Lost. It's like the hatch of Severance.
You just brought me into the hatch.
Yeah, like we
Okay.
went straight to Desmond Hume,
Understood.
and all of a sudden you've got all this information that we could only speculate about for all these seasons. Now, if you're listening to this, you are probably a Severance fan, but I've got to run through my traditional synopsis just to get us all up to speed. Maybe haven't watched the episode since this past spring, so I'm going to try and capture the broad strokes. And then at the end, Kris and or Eric, if you want to emphasize something that I left out, or if you interpreted something a little bit differently than me, you are welcome to dive in, and we can unpack it that way. Here is Chikhai Bardo. In flashback, we see Mark Scout and his future wife, Gemma, execute a meet cute for the ages at a blood drive while lightly mocking undergraduate research papers. We continue to flash back to this relationship in progress throughout the episode. In the present timeline, Gemma is nearly emotionally defeated from the pain she has endured at the hands of Dr. Maurer. She may not remember what happens in each of the torture chambers on the testing floor, but her aches and pains linger, and Dr. Maurer makes little effort to hide his predatory obsession with his prisoner. Mark Scout, meanwhile, is journeying through his memories after a rough reaction to his latest reintegration session with Dr. Ragabi. To further complicate matters, his distraught sister, Devon, is trying to piece together the danger her brother has gotten himself into. She doesn't know quite what's happening, but she takes custody of his brain. In fact, it's settled fucking law, lady. Despite the pain our main characters are enduring in the present, we get a snapshot of a warm, rich relationship and marriage that slowly degrades under the emotional trauma of infertility, miscarriage, and general desperation. While the couple is in this vulnerable space, Lumen seems to get its hooks into Gemma with mail order questionnaires. One night, Mark declines an invitation to join Gemma at an event, and she fails to return home. Later, he learns that she has been killed in a car accident. The pain of this loss is exacerbated by the fact that their marriage has descended into such a dark place. Nevertheless, there is hope. Present day Gemma wants nothing more than to see Mark again, and she fights back in an attempt to escape her prison, including a very satisfying strike with a chair to the back of the head of Dr. Maurer. After escaping to the severed floor, her Miss Casey persona takes over and is threatened back into the elevator by Mr. Milchick. If nothing else, we now know that rescue is an option, but we're left in a pretty desperate place. All right, that's my overview of Chikhai Bardo.
Two things I just want to highlight really quick.
Yeah.
I'm not certain that I understood. I assumed a car crash. I'm not sure that the episode actually tells us a car crash. The police arrive, bright light, you assume.
Yeah, I'm relying
crash.
heavily on previous knowledge.
Okay,
I
good.
don't,
just
I
wanna
don't
make sure.
think I
Okay.
don't think they said it expressly for you in that episode.
Thank you. Wanted to make sure I hadn't missed that. And then just thank you for highlighting the satisfying strike with the chair, because I watched one episode and I felt satisfied finally when he was struck with the chair. I can't imagine how anybody who is watching the whole season up to this point, who has any previous experience with this doctor, must have felt in that moment. So I'm glad you called it satisfying.
Kris, were you familiar with one of Robbie Benson's main claims to fame?
No.
The voice of the Beast
Yes,
in
I'm so
Beauty and the
sorry.
Beast.
I did know that.
So a little fun meta level of playing with this prisoner relationship for sure.
More attractive than the prince on record.
My first memory of him was, I think it was the end with Burt Reynolds, and Burt Reynolds is telling him about all his crazy things that he had done, with women and whatever, and he's in there, he's the priest, and he's sitting there, he's got his collar up, and he's biting, he's going, oh my God," he's, like, listening intently to what all these horrible things he's doing. Like, I was able to say to him when I was as a kid, he was the teen heartthrob, he was
Yes.
huge. He was in everything, and I said, "You" was able to tell him he was my first favorite actor, absolutely, without a
That's cool.
and to be working with him was even just more bizarre. It was just think could this whole situation couldn't get more bizarre with
Yeah.
Severance. But,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was great, yeah.
I mean, Dr. Maurer is a creep, but Robbie Benson is a master. Chris,
He
that is the first time we ever meet that character.
My gosh. It took me a second. It
yeah.
took me a moment to be certain that I was seeing the same person in each of those rooms. When
Yes.
he was doctor and dentist and husband and, um, flight attendant.
My favorite misidentification when Chikhai Bardo first dropped is I saw several people online somehow thought Ben Stiller was the man on the plane. It's very clearly Robbie Benson, but I can almost get where they were coming from with like the wig work there. It was like vaguely reminiscent of some former Ben Stiller work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've seen Ben disappear into some really cool looks over the years, right?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, we've done our synopsis, we've broken the ice. It's time to get into personal connections.
Yeah.
My favorite part of any media lit episode. And so I'm really excited to start with you, Eric, here. What's an important memory that you have connected to like your time on Severance specifically or working with Adam Scott and the rest of the crew there?
I mean, I've had a zillion incredible memories on that show.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the things that really came to mind, what when I think back what the show is the first time I met, which was in the first couple of days of Ben and Adam and Dan, and realizing within like day two, this was way different. We had one of the first, I think the first scene that we did, something when we were in Adam Scott, Mark Scott's living room, and something went wrong. They had to go do something, and then, I mean, literally, like maybe a half an hour into the day. So Ben is on the ground. He's kind of setting up the shot with his camera, and everybody leaves. And all of a sudden, it's like me and Ben just sitting there, like a half hour into the beginning of Severance 5 years ago, and we were able to talk, briefly about some things that were personal that I would keep personal. And made I feel like a connection. It was at least for on my half, and he was a human right off the bat, and maybe it would have came from something else, but it was a little strange. And then I remember then we walked in. I saw Adam, and Adam was he's not from here, he's from LA, and he's like, "Wow, yeah, it was in, Manhattan. I had to get to the Bronx where the studio was, New York City." He's like, it's like, "How do you do it? How do you do it with all this traffic and stuff? It's great." I'm like, "Take a helicopter? I don't know." And we laughed about that. And he's like, "Oh man," and that was the ice breaking with him. And then Dan was a whole other unusual situation because he had never really done this before. I
Hmm.
think this was his first certainly TV show, and so he's hanging around. He's fascinated with everything. He's fascinated with us. And I didn't know who he was. He's like kind of like, he was just sitting around like on the stairs or whatever. And I'm like, wonder what he does. And then I realized, oh, he's Dan. He's the creator of the show. And and then we were able to connect with him just at, telling him things like he was fascinated with I worked on The Path. He loved the show The Path. I'm like, nobody's seen The Path. Like everybody, this is Aaron Paul,
Hmm.
and Hugh Dancy and Michelle Monaghan. This I thought it was a great show. It never hit. I thought it was going to be a hit, but it didn't. Like I, say with Severance, you never know if it's something's going to hit or not. And but we were, in Uncut Gems, he was a fan of, and we're I don't know, we just were able to talk about the things, TV and film, and it's like, wow, that's pretty great. So it was like all three of those guys, those key guys, on the first day or two, it was like, this is cool. This is really cool. That is my best memory, I think, of the show is the first is day two going, this is something's going on here.
And that special energy was sounds like it was available to you right off the cuff.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful.
I'm projecting myself onto this, but it's got to be cool to meet Ben Stiller for sure. I know Eric. We hail from similar geographic regions. Ben Stiller's done some work with the Farrelly brothers.
Well, I remember the first time I saw him was watching something about Mary in Providence, and I forget what they call it when they started making Providence, beautiful. There was, I guess that was in like '98-ish or something like that, and on the water, one of those things probably still there, one of those clubs on the water or whatever, and they were shooting there.
Hmm.
Him and Matt Dillon, and I don't remember, I don't know what I was doing up there, the Journal or whatever, and and I was watching, I'm like, "Oh, that's cool, there's Ben Stiller," and, who yeah, but, seeing the Farrelly brothers getting off topic of it, but seeing the Farrelly brothers and Michael Carenti and all those guys doing that in Rhode Island, was really inspiring to say, well, you know what? Because I was always a huge film fan since I was a little kid, doing short film stuff. I said, that it can be done. They showed that it could be done, to me and to a lot of people. I know a lot of friends that, Rhode Island was kind of a hot spot there for a while. And, and a lot of people became filmmakers. Meet a lot of people in New York doing, great things. They're all from Rhode Island, so.
You love this show. You've spoken glowingly, really, of every project that you've worked on, the ones that have hit in a broader way, the ones that haven't. But I started chatting with you because you seem to really be enjoying like the fandom explosion surrounding Severance. So, what is it that's so unique about Severance, in your opinion, that allowed it to become this fan phenomenon, and that makes it fun for you to engage with the fandom and the theorizing as well?
Season 1 coming up with COVID and all that shit, I don't know, it was strong. We got 14 Emmy nominations, and, we only won 2. One, I think, was casting or something where the other one was for the theme song you guys are talking about,
Mm,
the opening credits. Yeah, actually, that was one of the 2 Emmys that we won for, Chris there for the theme song there, and that's really great. But we're going through all this stuff. We're kinda living it and, with
yeah.
other everybody, stand-ins and props and everybody, and they're like, "Wow, this is really good grips," and going, I mean, some shows are like that. Some shows you get really into the story and stuff. This was particular though. We were really into it, and then, it got acclaim, but not nothing like season 2. And then, we're all talking about, "Well, what's gonna happen this? So this happened, this, that's it." We're like fans on set of ourselves, I guess you'd call it, of the show, of the writing, of Dan's, and, it and then when it hit, then all of a sudden we had this. You're talking years later. You're talking 3 years later, 4 years later, I
Mhm.
guess, when we started. Um, we were like, we all these people just kind of joined us as fans of the show.
Mm,
Now we had somebody to talk to, the 300 people that made the show. All of a sudden we had, all these thousands of people that were not only embracing what we did and enjoying what we did, but also seeing things that we didn't see, and, uh, so that's where that came from, and I remember even John Turturro at one point was saying in some interview, he's like, "Well, I'm on the subway and, and people are coming up," and he's like, "Yeah, really?" And that seems not really like John Turturro because he's very much to himself and stuff, but
Mhm.
he's enjoying it. He's like, "This is crazy." He's like, "I've never been on a show like this, and this is great because we're fans first. We were fans first, and then all the fans just joined us, so I'm friends with a lot of the fans, so I'll be honest with you,
Yeah.
yeah, really am.
it's wonderful you all were able to embrace that as a positive thing and share it. I could see the opportunity for it to be kind of like a punk rock moment where the band that you know is cool, but nobody else has ever heard of, all of
Yeah,
a sudden becomes popular and you have all these new fans.
yeah.
There can be sort of a protectiveness around the thing that you love. It's really cool that you all were so open-handed and excited to welcome folks in and share this experience.
Well, you guys say you like Lost too. I've never watched Lost and never watched Twin Peaks, and those are the 2 shows they kinda compare us to.
Mhm.
But
Mm,
there are so many details that are, these hidden little, the maps or the this or the that, that people are figuring out, and I didn't realize they were there, I didn't
Mm,
realize that the extent of the details and the props and stuff that people were going to and, and some of the writing and stuff, a lot of the writing, um, I didn't realize all the little secrets and hints and
mhm.
Easter eggs and stuff that were there until season 2,
mm.
myself, and then and people come out with they just know everything. They know more than we do in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gotta be fun. That's too
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Well, we love it here at Media Lit when stories and storytelling bring people together.
yeah.
So I'm curious to hear from you. Who's just like one person from all the time you spent on set that was really special, who helped to make it a strong work environment?
Well, it's Ben.
Okay.
Absolutely. He's just the leader. He is a great guy. He's all business when it's time to go, but he's fun when it's downtime, and I don't know, he's just an incredible leader. That's all there is to it. Forget about he's a great filmmaker and writer and all that, but he's a great leader, and everybody that's there likes to be strive for perfection or whatever you wanna call the craziness that we do or OCD or whatever, um, but there's when it's not time, there's jokes, there's fun, there's There's a lot of love, a lot of joy, a lot
Mm.
of joy, when we're it's who know, we're talking about Patriots and stuff, we're all from New England, and I think this is the closest I'll ever do they're always striving for perfection,
Mhm.
Tom is always there 4 hours early, first, that's kinda how we all have that mentality, and if you enjoy it, it's no big deal. If you don't like it, then, it's not for you, but,
Yeah.
we like it, and we like going for it, and then when it's time to laugh and eat ice cream, we laugh and eat ice cream.
Yeah. That's so wonderful to hear because as somebody who hasn't watched the show all the way through, I've still enjoyed following Ben Stiller on socials and
Yeah,
seeing the behind the
Mm.
scenes that he shares, those still
yeah,
images. It's so clear that he has a reverence for the creators who are involved, for the
yes,
artwork that's there, not just his own work, but the
yes,
people who are around him and
yeah,
all of the
Yeah.
collaboration that's happening.
exactly.
It's quite apparent. So it's nice to hear
He's
you
a
say that.
fan of a lot of people, of
Oh,
everybody,
yeah.
that's why we're there. We're all fans of each other,
That's
which
cool.
sounds strange, but it is. It's absolutely true.
I've only got the fandom connection, but I can't think of a single other example, of someone with the chops of Ben Stiller putting so much time and effort into just interacting with the fandom during season 2. He was just
I think
constantly,
it
like, elevating people, engaging, and obviously, he
yeah,
had his own podcast about the
yeah.
show.
It is weird. I guess it's weird, but I don't know, maybe if we didn't have a slow start, if we were off right out and everybody I still it's a puzzle show. So you're
Mhm.
discussing it's art, it's puzzle, it's it's you know, whatever, social science, science fiction, it's all this crazy stuff that there's a lot to talk about there. There's a lot to discuss. Like, oh, did you see that? Or how do you feel? From him to me to, anybody that's doing it, we're all thinking about this and wondering, and I don't know. It is a unique show, period. So we're all behaving oddly and unique, and yeah, and I'm glad that Ben's doing it, but I can see why. It doesn't
Yeah.
shock me or surprise me at all. I know he's into it.
Well, we were able to, dig into Eric's personal connections to Severance, uh, but let's dig into this episode as a piece of literature.
Yeah,
And this is where I've got to lean back into what I've done to Kris tonight, putting him on the spot as a guinea pig, throwing him into the fire, asking him to watch a huge Severance like revelation episode without any context whatsoever. So, Kris, I asked you to prepare a couple things for us. Uh, Number one, I asked you to come up with some things that you think you might know about Severance now that you've watched this one episode. Uh, so if you have some things you want to state with some confidence, we can give you some feedback. And I also asked you to prepare some questions for us. Like, what was the context that was really driving you nuts that you desperately needed that you want to know before you go back and fire up season 1, episode 1. So talk me through this, buddy. I gave you quite the job.
So what do I know about this show? I between the opening thumbnail there on Apple TV when you first pull up the show where you see Adam Scott and some other people inside the space that I now recognize as, I believe, Lumen. So with that, plus what I've watched, I believe what I know about this show is that Lumen is an evil corporation. Lumen is one thing publicly and something else privately. Not
Mm.
everybody trusts Lumen. Adam Scott's character, who I only know as Mark, but now I've heard the word Scout thrown around, just his last name,
Scout, yes.
Scout. Okay, Mark Scout. I have to assume based on that thumbnail, worked or participated somehow in Lumen, whatever Lumen is. He was in that space. Now he's not in that space, and now he doesn't look good. He used to be clean shaven. Now he has scruff. He had scruff in the past, and that was an important time marker for me. But I also see in the future where he's looking, or the present, looking tough and rough. He's unkempt, he's sweaty, and he's scruffy. So I assume he has left Lumen. Like he's no longer involved in Lumen directly. Um, that's what I know about the show. I also believe I know that um, the show centers on a husband and wife who Lumen has nefariously separated and worked to keep separate for some unknown reason.
Beautiful.
That's what I know.
Okay, so Kris, your general sense of like what Lumen is correct. One thing publicly, another thing privately.
Okay.
So you're absolutely correct there. I suspect you were hearing some of that very culty sounding language
Yeah, I've watched
from
some
Robbie
TV.
Benson
Right.
yeah, who is this Kier? What's with the reverence? So I think you're spot on there. I'm really impressed that you got all that from this one episode. Now, as far as Mark Scout, because you haven't watched the show, I
Mhm.
am not sure that you have a great understanding of the severance procedure. Eric, are you interested in taking that one?
Yeah. So, severance procedure is to you go through this medical procedure where they sever your brain. So when you get on these elevators to go to work in the basement floor, your brain just triggers and you're just in work mode, and you don't remember your past life. You have no idea what you did at home. You do at home, and you go to work, and then when you're done, you walk out and pop. Now you don't remember what you did at work, and you're in real life
Every day?
every
You're
day. So, but
okay.
now the value to that is you don't remember working, so you get a paycheck. You get $1,000 a week, and you don't remember ever going to work, and isn't that great? Careful what you
Okay.
wish for.
Okay. That is helpful to hear because I think a question I had was um, about the elevator because Gemma's going up the elevator and then something clearly shifts in her consciousness. I'm watching her go up the elevator and like something shifts and
Yeah,
then she gets to that next floor and there's the long dark hallway.
yeah.
Um, the elevators, something in like you pass a certain point and that triggers the
That's what triggers
okay.
the chip in your brain.
Understood.
So,
Understood.
you watch a very complicated one with her because she's the innie, the outie, we're trying to escape and all that stuff because when she's going up the elevator, she's trying to escape, but then that triggers her back to being it's really complicated, but back to being the innie, and she's no longer wants to escape. She doesn't know why she's even there. Like, you know what I mean? When she meets Milchek at the end and says, "Hey, go
Yeah.
back. Everything's fine," because it's slightly she's a different case because sometimes her rooms when she goes into the different rooms, they change with her. So, now we're upping the ante. So
Okay.
she would be herself, and then she would walk out of her room, and then she's innie and outie, whatever, because she's on the testing floor. She permanently lives there.
So she sort of in the room is also going through a similar consciousness shift.
Yes.
She's okay,
Yes.
because I
We
remember
don't really
she
know
sh
why they have her
yeah,
active there.
that's helpful to me because wondering what was happening with her having no memory of what's happening in the rooms despite having
Yes.
physical remnants of
Yeah.
those things, but now I understand that's the whole concept is you're
Yeah.
constantly shifting
Yes.
between things you
She's a guinea pig.
understood.
Yeah.
You used 2 words there in your explanation, that bring me to my next burning question because I heard these words thrown around in the episode. I could tell they had some import to the overall structure. The hell is an innie and an outie? We were gonna go to a cabin a
You're
cabin where we could meet
well,
Mark's innie?
you went in full the deep end there, but, the innie and the outie is basically you would the show started, you just go in the elevator, you're the outie when you're living outside, where you
Okay.
live, then you're innie when you go in the elevator and you're innie, so you have basically your split personality or whatever, two people really, and you're your innie and your outie. And then, the birth thing, I mean, I guess I'm gonna tell you, maybe revealing too much, but the birthing thing is so now they're doing all these tests, like, well, what if we can the elevator, what if you can get on a plane and you can trigger your brain? They're testing to see if they can sell this. So
Mm,
you go through a door or whatever, and you don't remember being on the plane, so now you're on the plane, you go and you get off, so all of a sudden so basically the benefit of that is you're going to the airport, and then
mhm,
you're in Orlando. You don't remember the flight, the crazy flight, or you go into
mm,
the dentist, you go through a thing, you don't remember, and you walk out and you don't remember the dentist, the horrible half hour. You're going to be for 9 months, be pregnant. You can be in any,
right,
and be pregnant. You don't, then you come out, no son. And so you just have your baby. There's your
okay.
baby. You don't have to go experience these bad things, is
My
what they're trying to test and sell.
we're gonna put bad things in quotes there. My mind is now spinning because okay, hold on. Um First of all, I just want to acknowledge a separate reference. I don't know if we're gonna do pop culture later.
Yeah.
This is giving me Click with Adam Sandler. We've already mentioned Adam Sandler tonight, but wasn't he fast forwarding through the things in life he didn't wanna have to live through to get to the good stuff? That's that movie, right? And then he learns the hard lesson that you gotta live through the anyways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, okay, let me ask you this. You're talking about the innie and the outie like separate personalities, and I heard them say in the episode they could go to a cabin and meet Mark's innie, right? And I heard that the, Milchick, I heard him say to Gemma, "Your outie came for an art exhibit and got on the wrong elevator." So and you mentioned that these are like split personalities, Eric.
Yeah.
So you when you go to work and you go into the severance, like, you're severed, you go down the elevator, you become your innie,
Mhm.
you go back the next day, do you remember the day before? Like,
You
does your
do.
innie so your innie has memories of its own
Yes.
and
Yeah.
your outie so you're forming new memories along the way, but they're separate. Like, the
Yes.
innie remembers his life as an innie, everything about the day before at work. He's building memories, building relationships, and
Yeah, yeah.
experiences. Okay.
Yeah, you're stepping on the elevator and then the doors close. When they open again, you've just worked for 8 hours, but you have no perception of it.
And when you're in, you know you were home for a while, but, like I said, you remember the next day or the day
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, and all of the innies are kind of these like some semi-infantilized versions of everyone because they've only gotten the picture of life that they've received from Lumen. They have like vague senses of the world. But like in the first season, a lot of the humor comes from them trying to spin doctor it. It's like, yeah, we don't get to go home and sleep and relax, but you feel kind of a sense of euphoria. Like you can tell that your outie got a chance to sleep. But
Yeah.
you're clocking out of work and then clocking right back in. You're never on a break. That's just life.
That's
The
just
innies
life.
do a lot of guessing of what their outies like Dylan, would
Yeah.
probably didn't even meet him in that episode, I don't think.
No.
But, whatever, they're like, "Oh, I must be a bodybuilder in my Audi," or whatever. "I must have, did something last night. I'm tired," or "I'm rested," like you said,
No
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
last burning question, I guess, now that I've developed this conversation with you, and how distinct are the personalities? Is it often that somebody's like a totally different person, in their innie versus their outie, or is it like to your point, Randy, like an infantile was the word you used?
I think you just unlocked the operative question that drives the writing of the entire series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, are they? Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's what the series wants to ask because in some ways they are the same person, in other
Yes.
ways they are not. And I think part of the joy of this series is they keep finding new ways to get me to think about what that split would mean,
Mm.
philosophically. I
What
think
kinds of
that's what I
choices do you make if you've never had, like, your nurturing experiences? Interesting. Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
Well, some are more diverse than others, like Helly is probably the most diverse.
yeah.
She's very good on the inside and very bad on the outside, but they both have these similar toughnesses in them where,
Got it.
it's very, very interesting.
So you're wrong to say that Mark has left Lumen because he is still reporting to work, but they've unlocked some clever ways for his innie to learn a little bit more about the Audi and whatnot. And how do they fight back against the system from within that's like designed to keep them from being able to communicate? And how can they work together when they're also kind of at odds with one another, fighting over this body and this brain?
Is he trying to take down Lumen or trying to get back to Gemma?
He wants Gemma. It's his wife. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
Okay.
thought was dead, and now
He
he's starting to realize she's not.
yeah. Yeah, like I warned you before you signed up for this, Chris. There are major spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You hear about the wife for all of season one. I think it's the penultimate episode. You find out that this Miss Casey character was his wife.
Wow.
And most of season two is like, is she alive or not? What's going on? Like trying to piece that together.
Mm.
So you got like, this is where we learn the most about who Gemma actually was. This is
And
the
is
first time we've seen her in her Gemma form.
okay, so is the show not often giving as much focus to Gemma as it did this episode? I mean, this was her episode in a lot of ways,
Correct.
right?
Correct. She's
Okay,
been more of a
understood.
concept.
Mm,
Um, so instead of being split into two, she's split into like 27 pieces. She has a so like she's basically the hidden third level of this
mm.
building. So, in order to escape that building, she has a whole separate severed personality on the severed floor. So, when she went up that elevator, she had no memory of the testing floor, no memory of Mark. She's
Yeah.
just this like lumen robot, practically. Not literally a robot. I probably shouldn't have used that terminology to confuse you. But,
No, I didn't take it too
but
literally,
yeah,
but I can see
lots.
how some fans might be like, "I think they're all robots."
Yeah.
Um, but it sounds a little bit like the poor thing is in layers of dreams, a la Inception. Like she has more layers to
Yes.
come back from than the average severed
Yeah.
person.
And we've never seen someone severed the way she is in this episode. Every single one of those rooms is a different persona that's just living like that first one. She's living the dentist over and over again. Every time she leaves the dentist, she perceives that she's just stepped right back into the room.
I caught that. She's like, "I was just
Yeah,
here."
yeah.
He's like, "It's been 6 weeks, haha," which is, first of all, too frequent to go to the dentist even, like, what do we 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Beautiful stuff.
Her eyes, in that episode and where she comes alive because when she was Gemma, she was actually the psychiatrist, basically the counselor in the first season, but she was new to the world, and again, without I guess I've got to give the spoilers, but she was at one point. She says, "Well, I've only been alive for 80 days," something to
Mm,
that effect,
Yeah.
and which was really sad, and she was really I guess child was just, I don't know, kinda dreamy, and then with this episode with her going back and forth and the acting she did in that, it was
mm,
Yeah.
I thought was just stunning. When I'm rewatching
Yeah.
it again, and because I know what every, twitch of the eye means because
mm,
we knew because we were watching it for 2 seasons, and it was really some stunning acting
Yeah.
'cause it's so layered. What you think what they're saying is happening and what she's showing in her eyes, you realize there's about 6 things going on.
mm.
Yeah.
It was really an achievement.
Okay, thank you both for your generosity in that moment. I really appreciate you letting me, almost make a fool of myself. I hope it wasn't too insane, but thank you for bringing me into this world. I'm like, I almost wanna hang up and go watch the show,
Yeah.
but I won't. And I will say, for those listening at home wondering why in the name of all that is good, I haven't watched this show yet, it's because it's almost too big. Like, my wife and I are holding off until we have the appropriate time to be able to sit down and
Yeah.
really indulge in this show. We both know it's something we're going to love. We're Lost fans. This is right up our alley. But
Mhm.
we weren't on it right away, and then this thing, like, picked up steam and all the theorizing, we felt left behind, so we're gonna let it do its thing. I hope I can hold off now, we'll see. But just for anybody wondering why not yet, it's because it's very much a not yet, not a not ever.
Yes.
Okay, so, Eric, we haven't really even talked about you. You're in one of the most, like, I understand now, most noteworthy shots of the episode. Impressively creepy. Just
I get that a lot.
yeah, no, really, really wonderful. So much with your eyes, but I won't go too
Mhm.
crazy on you, but really, really wonderful. That being said, um, can you, like, give us the human experience you had in that moment? Like, you were a part of the big reveal, it sounds like, for the season. Um, I suppose folks were wondering if there was somebody behind these somebody's watching, right? You're the Mark watcher, so what did it feel like to be a part of the big reveal?
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. I mean, as an actor, Ben saying, "Hey, I wanna put you on camera." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." Really not having any idea. It was like, "Oh, here's your set, and, this is like a major thing in multiple principal days," and really something it was a shot that took essentially all season to work on because, in hindsight, I'm trying to remember, like, we had the strike too. So I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure working on it before the strike or what it was going on for a while. I'm doing all these test shots with the feet, with the this, the that, the cameras, and Jess has, her own podcast, so she did, like, about, I don't know, I guess 4 episodes or whatever, and she talks about, Matt, who was her DP for at least for the film part, with the flashbacks were all done on film camera, actual film camera, and Matt was her DP. And, that came a little later, but those needed, test shots or whatever. So basically, when Ben said that, I said, "Great, okay, I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna be the guy at the gas station. There you go, man. Thank you. There's your change," or whatever. I don't know what I'm doing. Not
Sure.
realizing it was gonna be this whole big, huge thing. It was I don't know, it was stunning, but, you w in the thick of the moment, you're not really thinking about much of how cool it is or how none of it's like, you're still working, you're telling this story and stuff, and I think we had spoken about before about the foot tapping. I had said to Jess, I said, "What do I, am I human? Am I a clone?" I'm like, "I know you can't answer these questions, but I need to know what how I am I just a, a security guard, whatever." And she's like, she gave me the advice to what my parameters of where I am, where my brain would be without spoiling anything. And whatever. I don't know. We'll find out next season, where we go from there. But yeah, I yeah, I tried to put the human touch into it, and with the foot tapping and little this and that and the other. But we'll find out. We don't know what I am, you know. It's funny because we all asked the same questions. What, we're on set, Brett had said to me, it's like, "But why do you guys look like guys?" And we're like, "I don't know. We don't know yet." Like back
Mm.
then, when we were working on it. And now we have some idea, but not really. It's up, I know they know. I know Dan knows. I know, Ben knows, what we're doing there, but we don't know. And, we don't need to know. It's fun not knowing.
I
Yeah.
can appreciate the curiosity there about that. I'm sure throughout the production of the show or a show like this, as an actor, you wanna understand as much as you can about your character's motivations,
You
right?
have to, yeah.
What are the internal choices that you're
Well,
making?
Jess we made it clear where I was coming from,
That's really
without
wonderful, I'm sure.
without spilling the beans at all.
That's a tightrope to walk.
Yeah, I really love that shot, and again, just watching it as a fan and, someone who was writing about the series along the way and trying to theorize every week and fill my article with some new ideas. Season 2 is just so beautiful, um, but all the concrete theories I thought I had going into season 2 were just getting more and more confused and convoluted because there's so much new data to take in, so many things to incorporate. Um I had a lot of theories about what might be going on with Gemma that I was kinda hoping weren't true. So when this moment of your shot came, it really hit me because I was shocked at how much of, like, a visceral, real answer it was. I was like, "Oh my god, we're finally going to, like, a real place."
Yeah,
I've been watching Mark stare at mysterious numbers on a screen and file them away
yeah,
for, like, a season and a half now. And now I finally have some insight into what's happening. There's
yeah,
someone reviewing that data. And actually, I forgot until this rewatch, there's another shot of you in there implying that you're reviewing Gemma's data as well.
yeah.
Maybe when Mark's not at the screen.
I forgot how
Um,
much I was in it with my eyes. They clicked in my eyes like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
watching again, I'm watching
but
again."
um,
Yeah,
but to see that Gemma, yeah, unless there's a really strange surprise coming up in season 3 that wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. To learn that Gemma is Gemma and
yeah,
that they are, somehow comparing and contrasting their emotional experience together. That was so rewarding for me. I was like, yes, this is a mystery box show, but it's still a human show.
yeah,
And that
Mhm.
made me so happy to feel in this episode. Chris, not having sat through a season and a half, I imagine the weight of the impact of that moment didn't hit you the same way. But did you have any thoughts when you saw that camera start moving through the floor? That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
almost 100% a practical shot.
yeah,
I read that in your article after I finished the episode. I
Yeah,
did read the interview, and despite not appreciating the big impact, right? I wasn't wondering the same things
sure.
other folks were wondering. It was still so clearly significant because of those stylistic choices, right? As the camera moves interestingly down through the floor, you get the idea that you're moving into something that the people who we just left aren't aware of, right?
Yeah.
You get the immediate sense that you're moving into a space outside of this space. Um, and then you get that foot tapping, which I really love that description of how you all landed on what it should look and feel like, and it's human, right? You at least you are a human. It's a very human reaction to be sitting there somewhat rhythmically tapping. I'm intrigued. Your eyes, man. The first thing that struck me was
Mhm.
oh, it looked like Adam Scott, but I knew what to be expecting, so I knew, oh, this is Eric. This is that moment, right?
yeah,
Um, but immediately, why does it look like Adam Scott? So one of my first thoughts was like, have, like, parallel dimension alt version
Mm,
of Mark, right? Was one of my first thoughts, but then
Yeah.
you had what's his face, the doctor there
Yeah.
in his stupid sweater, as was stated. Um, and he, like, clearly moves from that space back into the other physical space that Gemma was occupying. So I realized it must share physical space at the very least, but I was so intrigued and confused. That room was pretty intentionally dark and felt isolated. It didn't feel like that room was as attached to the larger building as other things feel, hallways with doors off of them and so on and so forth. So, um, again, just like extremely intriguing and just this next level of mystery.
Were you able to take away from watching it your first time that it was a time lapse going back, we'll say 2 years to when he first started the company? Yeah, I don't know if that was because that's basically what they were showing is that I was what that time lapse stuff that I was actually and they spin around the room that we were been watching them since they arrived, and that's why you see, uh, uh, John Turturro's guy disappear because he
Mhm.
left the thing something after that. So
Got it.
here
yeah.
the point being that we have been watching them since they got there, and for some reason, we look like them, we don't know why,
Yeah. I guess I didn't perceive, like, necessarily the from the beginning, but I certainly perceived the length of time that it was a time lapse moment that was
yeah,
meant to understand that you all have been attached to these people
since they arrived.
significantly. Yeah. And clearly, because
Yeah.
you look like them, there was something going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it's perfect stuff. It's a beautiful shot. And Eric, it's a crime that I haven't shouted out Jessica Lee Gagné yet.
Mm.
She is up for Best Director for this episode and her directorial debut. Now, she's certainly no newbie. She's the director of photography on Severance. She's essential to the look and feel of this show. But this season was so well received that Severance is competing with itself for Best Director.
Yeah,
Right, Jess is up for Best Director for this episode. Ben Stiller is up for Best Director for another episode of season
yeah.
2. Um, so obviously that shot is one of like the textbook sort of like look at what we can do kind of cool moment. But this episode is packed with great filmmaking choices. So for the next portion of this podcast, I just wanted to ask everyone, what's another favorite shot or sequence that you really loved from this episode? Eric, I'll go right back to you.
Well, I mean, the film sequences, the time lapse like they did with us, but was not on film, was in, the digital, the normal, shooting, but they did the actual film cameras, and, like, in his office, like, and everything. Um I think also watching it again, realizing that all of those flashbacks were I mean, I guess I sorta knew this, was Adam sleeping, his dreams, those weren't Gemma didn't know that. Gemma wasn't thinking of these things. Gemma wasn't having these flashbacks, and it's kind of I guess it could be slightly confusing. But, this was you see him he's unconscious, and then in the end, he wakes up and you realize all those were his memories alone, and for some reason, I thought I don't know, whatever. Uh, Gemma was a part of those memories, but the shots, the film shots, twirling around the office and stuff like that, and the
Mhm.
flares and those are real flares. These aren't digital. Hit the flare button for editing or whatever. This is some crazy, crazy filmmaking. That's why people are going so nuts because the story was so crazy. It was so climactic for the season, and it was just so beautiful. So, to be a part of that episode where people had, I'm like, "Oh gosh, I hope I'm in it. I hope it's good. I hope whatever you're hoping, kinda normal things or whatever." Um, to people coming away saying, "This is the best episode of television ever shot." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa." And we go back and we laugh with the cameraman and stuff like, "Yeah, man, they go really going really crazy." And of course, Cold Harbor, which was the last episode, which was again, which is Ben's episode, which he was nominated for, was was just stunning. So I don't even know what to say. I'm one of the times, like I said, I give Adam his space and whatever. And he does his job, I do my job, and I'm thinking about my shit. He's thinking about his shit. But we were walking down the hallway and you jumping off Chikhai Bardo for a minute in Cold Harbor. Um, Chris, you won't know what I'm talking about, but you've seen all the billboards where he's all bloody and he's a mess. And some crazy stuff happens. And I'm walking down this long hallway, because those are real hallways. It's not CGI. Those are actually built, and it's like a
Mhm.
big maze. And I was, they're setting up the cameras with me, and then but there's nobody else in the hallways because of this crazy running around and everything. It's basically the camera and him, and he's walking in, and I had to say to Adam, I had to, yeah, I go, dude, I said, this is, I have to tell you, you look amazing. The bloody and the gun and the thing in his hand. I said, this is just iconic.
Yeah.
And I contain myself most of the time, and I had to say, and sure enough, he's on billboards like it. I'm like, you're gonna be on posters, on walls, I think I said something like that, like, because 'cause I'm from the '70s, we had posters of things on walls. But, but there he is, he's in, these massive, massive billboards on sides of buildings with, and they're playing it in video, them running down the hallway and, so can I swear in this?
Oh, yeah.
One of those motherfuckers better win.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jess, because they did not. There were 2 directors. Aifa was directed
Yep.
also last year, and neither one of them did, and that's insane. But, okay, now, I mean, my god, those 2 episodes, and I don't know, it's a
Yeah.
coin toss. It's honestly a coin toss,
Yeah.
of who I don't even know who yeah, whatever. It's insane. It's
Yeah. But I love that you brought up that montage because, like, Chris, as someone who hasn't watched the whole series, one reason this episode jumps out so much is just the warmth of those shots. You're in like this
Mhm.
lived in space versus that really sterile office.
Right.
You get like actual shots of wildlife. Like you don't get that on Severance. I won't get
no.
into deep spoilers. You get like perversions of animals. You get animals living in and appearing in unnatural spaces, but there's just like a shot of like a deer laying in the grass mixed in there. So that's a really great choice, Eric. Chris, how about for you? What's another shot or sequence that stuck with you from this episode?
Okay, I wanna go to much different in feel. To your
Yeah.
point, Randy, when we're inside, things are so sterile. They're
Hmm.
so cold. Everything feels distant and inhuman. When Gemma is trying to escape, I don't know how frequently we watch folks move through these hallways at night, but the
Hmm.
choice to light from below as she
Yeah.
walked through the hall,
Hmm.
those motion activated wall, like floor wall mounted lights, were a beautiful effect. Quick as she was making her way, slow as the nurse was
Hmm.
approaching, right? Watching her try to do just enough to hide and then stop that motion. That sequence was like just thrilling enough without being like edge of your seat. Like it didn't change the tone and pace of the episode in any way, but it was urgent. And so much of it was just that one simple choice to
Yeah.
keep things dim, except lit by those motion lights that helped us track everything as it progressed. Really beautiful.
Yeah, that was on my list too, Chris. And I've been referring to that floor that Gemma is sort of trapped on as the testing floor. The
Hmm.
floor that Mark works on that she briefly escaped up to is the severed floor. Now, this effect of lights turning on and off as they walk down the labyrinthine hallways of Lumen is part of the language of the show, but it's like your standard top-down lights.
Oh, okay.
So in this episode, that really beautiful low lighting tells you you're in the same place, but that we're operating on different rules. So that was on my list of shots as well. Such a good
Cool.
choice. So I'm gonna go with we get several of these montagey type moments, but I'm gonna go with the one specifically between when we go from the fertility clinic and we kind of like travel through time, memory, and thought to the moment where they're doing the last round of hormone injections.
Hmm.
Um, because not only are we getting flashes of a few different things, we've got like these very quick flashes of Lumen, we've got flashes of the apartment, and I believe we get some quick flashes of this tree that's some iconic imagery from the show. Um, which seems to be tied to this memory that Mark has that Gemma is dead. You know, there's at least one line of dialogue saying that he did have to go and identify her body. So we don't know exactly because I don't know exactly what kind of Stranger Things logic was going down there. He had every reason to believe that she was truly dead. But just before he walks out to administer the injections, we are in a Lumen hallway, but he's like pulling clothes from his home drawer. And I just loved the way they transitioned into that set design. And then he walks through the door into his past memory. And they've been playing with that visual language all season, but that was one of my favorite moments of that. Um, when we were explaining innies and outies to you earlier, we never kind of got around to saying outie Mark in the real world has decided to undergo the process of reintegration. Supposedly, you can remerge those two parts of your brain. So the woman who was making Mark's sister so angry,
Mhm.
Ragabi, she's a former Lumen scientist who's gone rogue. She's on the run. She claims she's cracked the secret to reintegration, but it's very risky and dangerous. And poor Devin walked in to see her brother collapsed convulsing on the floor at the end of the previous episode as a result of this. Meanwhile, the Lumen public stance is that reintegration is impossible. And we know it's not true. So to see him on the cusp between those two things has been fascinating.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I have so many more questions. I won't derail us, but
Sure,
everything
sure.
everything you say makes me want to ask 1,000 questions.
That's Severance, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the draws in the hallway, and seeing again was another thing that kind of surprised. I mean, whatever, I forgot. She's in her living room, and the chairs are there, and then it's the when she's at the doctor, and you see Bobby Benson walk by, and you realize, and he gives a little tiny look. It's every second counts in
Mm,
episodes. You see, he basically walks by in about 3 seconds. He's the
Yep.
doctor. She's
Yep.
in there with Mark, the husband, and they're having trouble with the birth, and they cut to her living room, and it's the same room
Yep.
mm,
as when they were together going to this doctor for this, maternity stuff, and you realize this has been going on a while before they
Yeah.
knew what was what
right.
at all. Mhm.
Crazy. Again, you said it earlier, 5-year plan. You can see how much thought is behind the
Oh
narrative
yeah.
of this
Yeah.
show. Really beautiful.
And one last thing was, like, in the blood, when they're starting out in the blood, they're giving the blood, and you see the lumen,
Hmm.
Mhm.
devices, it's, yeah, we don't we it's they've we don't know. They could have been born there for all we know, you know? It's been
Whoa.
going on for a while.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Makes you wonder if even, like, that meet cute was manipulated.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, yeah,
Yeah,
and
interesting.
there are theories. I mean, I guess we can talk theories yes, season over, but, they were used, they were taking the blood, they were testing, they were doing things. It wasn't about giving blood, it was
Mhm.
Lumen wanted to collect their blood for various reasons.
Various
Hmm.
reasons, yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting. Okay. Um, you said this earlier, Randy, and I really loved what you said. This is a mystery box show,
Yep.
but it's also still a very human show. So I'm excited to ask you both, as people who watch the whole series, participate in the whole series, what does this episode alone have to say about what it means to be human, or the value of our connections to other humans? Randy, I'm going to go to you first in this one, buddy. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, my main takeaway from this series and this episode in particular is just the importance of open and honest communication, right? Like, obviously we see it with Mark and Gemma, when we start to see them having some fights and some disagreements, and you can see their anxieties and their frustrations coming out. They're not really saying what's really hurting them. You see people trying to put on a brave face and push things below. Um, a character who is a big character in season one, not as much screen time in season two, but a character who I still personally hope has room for a more complete arc in the next season. There's a character named Rickon. You mostly heard his voice when you had that little flashback to a little meal at the scout home with Gemma, Mark, his sister Devin, and her husband Rickon. And, Rickon, he's just a walking affectation. He's blowing all this hot air, using needlessly large vocabulary. He's talking about his climbing skills. And it's easier to follow if you have the captions on. But uh, Gemma and Devin are having this nice little moment where Devin realizes that Gemma is pregnant and she's very happy for her. Rickon is so desperately like seeking a relationship with Mark, and he's so dismissive of Rickon. And Rickon is annoying. He really is. He's so annoying. But this desire for a connection is so real. And maybe these two could find it if it weren't just buried under affectation. So even in like these less essential relationships, there's this like falseness. And I think the show really wants us to push past this, right? Like Eric, you said it well earlier. Like, yeah, if you're just like, oh yeah, wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to remember going to work? That sounds nice on a surface level, but you don't have to start digging too deep to see how problematic that can that could become. So yeah, I think openness, honesty, communication, being vulnerable, sharing feelings, admitting faults. That's it for me.
I love that. You could see how, so much of their relationship had been sort of ideal and rosy, and they were in kind of a perpetual honeymoon phase until the tragedy.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it almost seemed they weren't equipped really to talk about things in a real way.
Yeah.
Great
How
call out.
cute was that handy versus handsy moment? I mean, come on.
It was really good. They were wonderful together. I'm, like, shocked to know that we haven't watched more of these
Hmm.
2, like, that these 2 actors, haven't done more of this together outside of this episode is really
Yeah.
surprising to hear.
Yeah.
So Eric, we'll go to you, of course. How's humanity ringing for you in this episode?
I saw it as a tragedy, especially
Yeah.
watching the end, it's just that, I wish humans would try harder, you know? They had the problem with the baby,
Mhm.
and, like many people do, and things fall apart quick, and it just seemed like such a shame and such
Mm,
try harder, that's w that's the gut kick that I got, that, you like you said, they're so good together.
mm,
Why are they letting this in people? That's what people do. That's why it was a tragedy because you're like, "Man, these guys are like a real couple and doing all these things and they're great together. And why would you let this happen? This
mm.
tragedy, but why would you let it shouldn't tear you apart." And it does often, you know.
Yeah.
That's
Being
why
human being human is hard, and I think
exactly.
I saw what you're describing in that moment where it was so tragic to watch Gemma go through the miscarriage. I wept at that. She
Yeah.
was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Her performance was still, and it was quiet, and it was broken, and it was tragic. And then when Mark comes in, he's not like the toxic thing you fear in that moment where he's like, there's no anger or like he doesn't show his own heartbreak or disappointment in a way that leads to guilt for her, but he also isn't like you can almost sense how limited his emotional range is
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
moment to really reach for her and really understand what she needed from him in that moment to be with her in that brokenness. Um,
And she was reaching out to her
Yeah.
Scientology of thing, the Chikhai Bardo cards and stuff like that, so, "Well, I'm just gonna take this test," and she
Hmm.
was looking for something else, and it was crazy. I gotta tell you one thing that I thought was another strange thing, and I have no idea what it means, but, probably nothing. But in the beginning, he's got the pen cap in his mouth in
Mm.
the first scene, and he's doing his, grading his papers. And then when he goes to give her shot, like you said, he's got the cap in his mouth again, like almost the same way. And I'm
Interesting.
like, "We'll find out season 3. That means something."
Yeah, really great call out. I'm gonna maybe now as I do stuff to watch, I'll look for other instances where he's got the
Yeah,
cap in
and
it.
was there something else I missed in that beside but nothing is by accident in this show.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
Hmm.
Um, for me, that's all in there. There was beautiful human connection. You could see how though heartbreaking it is when those connections start to sever or when we lack those connections. So I think for me, what I was picking up on without greater context of the show, it seemed to be that Lumen is interested in this human connection piece, and it
Yeah.
seems that Lumen is interested in the ways in which our emotional connections, that love impacts the brain. It does seem to me that they're when they're poking and prodding at what was it as the severance barriers holding. Is that the?
Yeah, we don't really know what that means, though.
Yeah.
It seems to me, just based on this one episode, I'm like, oh well, they're wondering if this personal connection, this depth.
Yeah,
Like these 2 people are gonna find each other in every life, right? Like, they're so
exactly.
meant for one another. That love is so real and so strong. That bond is so deep despite the challenges, that maybe it can even supersede this technology, whatever great advancement they've made, right? This technological advancement, maybe humanity is the thing they can't calculate. Like, that connection between humans is the thing they can't account for that might undermine all of it, and they have to
Yeah.
work that kink out before they can move forward with this product, right?
Yeah.
So it seems to me that, like, trapping her specifically for this testing floor piece, trying to understand the more you said, like, they're trying to sell this, it's a more commercialized version,
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
product. Yeah, maybe she and he are the key to that research because of this immense connection that they share.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris, you grabbed another big thematic thread here. The first time anyone gives voice to this sentiment in season one, it's like in the context of a joke. But a big question the show is asking is, does love transcend severance?
Mm.
And you hear a character say that in a humorous context, but it's very clearly a question that everyone has in this show. So you are spot on, my friend.
With the severance Barry is holding, Olaf says that to Robbie Benson's character, and he's like, "Yeah." Now, however, he was hoping that even though he's trying to create all these things and wants the barriers to hold, and he's the scientist and all that, he's hoping, he's like, "Hey, do you remember, kinda liking me in that room over there?" Hoping that the barriers
Yeah.
didn't hold, so it's a little loaded with the second time I watch it through, realizing that, yeah, they're holding, but, he wished they didn't. But does love conquer all? We'll find out.
Mm. I was really interested to see that parallelism between, uh, him as the creepy husband on Christmas,
Yeah,
Whew.
repeating, "I said I love you,"
yeah,
and then Gemma having to repeat that same moment with Mark in the past, in the flashback, when he's, like, really receded into his work on the night that she died.
yeah.
Interesting. Clearly on
I think
purpose.
when she hit him with the chair, I think that's when he was saying, "But do you have any affinity to any of the people in the rooms? Do you remember
Yeah.
anything?"
Mhm.
In other words, like, "Don't you love me?"
Yeah, yep.
Whew. The biggest sense of relief I had in this episode was like before I knew what was going on with Gemma, I was like, go before I watched this episode, I was like, some of my theories had me wondering, like, was she deeply entwined with Lumen? Yada yada yada. So when he starts doing all of his Kier cult stuff to her and she doesn't say anything, and like even in this episode, you had seen her, you mentioned Scientology, like she's kind of into the questionnaires, and he says all that Kier stuff, and I was sitting there like, oh my God, is she gonna start spewing that Kier bullshit?
Yeah,
And when she just looks at him and she says, "Can you please speak like a normal person?"
Mhm.
That
yes,
was like when I knew I was in love with this episode. I was like,
yeah,
"Okay, thank God there's a
Mm.
character here still alive that I love." And when she hits him with that freaking chair, man, that's one of the all-time great physical assaults on television for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Chris, you've really picked up on some themes really effectively. And I think it's partly because you've taken in so much media and literature over the years. So, for my next question, I want to know what other media or popular culture was on everyone's brain when they were watching this. Chris, I'm going right back to you, man.
Yeah, I think I've named a few things here. Of course, we've got Lost, we've got Twin Peaks, it's an iconic mystery box. My favorite shot that I talked about before, that sequence, um,
Hmm.
it also reminded me of the Billie Jean music video. I was getting Michael Jackson moving down the hallway, pinged for me as the lights were coming on and she was walking around. Um I mentioned click, I was being a little tongue in cheek, but really the more we talk
Yeah.
about this concept of like why would you choose severance? It seems like such a similar concept, the idea that, oh, it might really superficially seem beneficial to be able to fast forward through bits of your life that you don't necessarily want to experience. Skip the discomfort, get back to the good stuff. Um, so that film was top of mind for me at some points. And then just purely in the contrast we were getting in this episode, I don't know how frequently this happens in the show overall, but Randy, I was back to another media lit favorite, Equilibrium,
Yep.
right? As we have this contrast between that severed world and the flashback memories, the
Yeah.
warmth that's there, the texture of the fabrics, the lighting, the idea of nature being involved, art. It was very much reminiscent of when Equilibrium was trying to communicate to us that a person was feeling, or if they were still on their meds, right? And they were minding those emotions.
Yeah.
Some real clear visual indicators with the color palette, and the temperature of those colors. So
Perfect. Perfect. I'm not going to go on a full, Huxley versus Orwell tangent. I've done that enough times on this podcast, but
Always welcome.
I do have to just briefly shout out, the usual Brave New World. If people are always happy, you can control them more effectively. And then for 1984, I can't not think of Room 101, the ministry being able to build a room that reflects your worst fears. The implication seems to be that part of Mark's data entry is helping them build these specialized rooms. That seems to be at least part of what's happening. So that was at work. But the thing I want to talk about more is one of my favorite movies, being John Malkovich.
Mm.
Are you a fan of this film, Kris?
Oh, yeah.
It's been all over my Severance theorizing. And as they kept compartmentalizing Gemma's brain into more and more pieces. Uh, and throughout this entire season, quite honestly, there's an episode earlier in season 2 where Mark walks through a little door, very reminiscent of the Being John Malkovich door. I was like, are they trying to craft some kind of a vessel to hold the consciousnesses of maybe members of this Egan family or something? And on just like my less human, emotional, and more of my big picture sci-fi theorizing layer, that Being John Malkovich, I've been banging that drum all season. And when this episode aired, I was like, man, oh man, sure seems like they've carved out a lot of different spaces inside of her brain. So I can't help but think of John Malkovich. What's going to happen to Gemma? Why invest so much time, money, and effort? Is she some kind of a vessel? It's a great question to ask.
Brilliant. Brilliant as always, sir. Excellent connections. Any great Gatsby to call out? I just want to make sure before we move on.
I'm gonna let Gatsby take 5.
Okay, Randy, brilliant as always, sir. I'm glad we can give Gatsby the week off. Um, let's talk a little bit before we wrap up about the performances in this episode. Some really beautiful acting on display, the craft on display. And so I want to know, just for each of the panelists here, who was your number one best performance in this particular episode? Eric, you watched a lot of it firsthand, but you watched the episode in the finished part as well. Who was it for you?
Well, Deacon, obviously, yeah,
Yeah.
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 I gotta say out loud too, she was one of the people who was not nominated as supporting actress, and
Mhm.
we had 8 million of them, and I hate to even bring up something negative like this, but it's fucking ridiculous. It really
Yeah.
is,
That
you know?
blows my mind. Having watched
Yeah.
this one episode, that blows my mind.
Yeah, and, they all deserved it, I mean, I don't know, whatever, but, when you see this episode, she was incredible. She was just incredible, and if you had the backstory of how she like we're saying, like, she was so childlike in these earlier episodes, now she just had so much depth, and she was multiple people going from this childlike person for most of the season 1 to being, split more than split personality, split several times it was just crazy.
Mm,
She's incredible. She's incredible.
mm.
And she's a great person too, so I'm like, "Oh my lord." I just can't believe it.
Yeah.
That's the icing on the cake. Glad you finished with that. That's wonderful. Randy?
I think I'm just gonna pile on and yes
Yeah.
Miss Casey is a great mystery box character who you'll meet when you go back and watch season 1. She's intriguing. It's exciting when we find out that she is either Gemma or looks exactly like Gemma, and we don't know exactly what's going on back at that point in time. But the relationship, the friendship, the romance, whatever you want it to be or not, that audiences are most interested in, the will they, won't they, is Mark and Helly. It's Adam Scott and Britt Lauer.
Yeah.
And so many people are so invested in that. The fact that Deachin could come in and complicate that in one spectacular episode by hitting all of those beats, it's astounding, and it makes the whole rest of the season land. And I won't spoil the season 2 finale for you, but if she were not so good in this episode, the final moments of season 2 would not be as perfect as they are.
Mm,
So yeah, I've just got a yes and. There's so many great performances, but I'm just gonna yes and.
yeah. I'm with you. Yes, and, Gemma, I was floored. As I said, I wouldn't have been surprised to learn that the whole series kind of equally centered on Adam Scott, his character, and on Gemma because I was so taken. She was mesmerizing, captivating. Um, there was a moment when she gets to the top of the elevator. She's in that long, dark hallway, and Milchick is telling her to go back. And you can see the program is working on her. There's
Yep.
that at the surface. She's gone blank. She's gonna be compliant, but there's, like, something screaming inside of her
Mhm.
that's resisting this, and that's, like, underneath the surface, and this performer is displaying that brilliantly with just her eyes, with the subtlest twitch of the cheekbone, of the lip. Um, she can't say it outwardly, it's all under the surface, and that's really challenging to do. It's like what makes acting a craft, right? And not something that everybody gets to try their hand at. Um, yeah, she was phenomenal. I don't know
Yeah.
that I can watch the series now. Like, she's listen, they're not like Desmond and Penny, but this couple for me has, like, they lived pretty large in my heart right now,
Yeah.
having watched this episode, and I'm rooting for them in a big way after watching this. I
Yeah.
can't imagine that there's a will they, won't they going on with another character. I'm gonna be watching this series now, having met Gemma,
Yeah.
having seen these flashbacks. I wonder how I'll feel about this other character you're talking about, and if I'll dislike her maybe by default because, like, hey, that's Gemma's mark. Don't do that.
Um,
It's
they
so
do, yeah.
complicated.
Yeah, it's so complicated. But, like, we spoiled some stuff for you, Chris, but I think when you do your watch through, I think your theorizing and your read on those scenes between Miss Casey and Mark is gonna be so much richer than, like, mine was the first time I watched it, so I'm almost a little bit jealous of that. Like, I've rewatched season 1, uh, but not since this, so, like, you're gonna have so much more data to read. But listen, we've done it. We've gone so deep on this episode, an episode that we clearly loved, even Chris without all of his context. But we can't get out of here before we do our extra credit section. So, Chris, I'm going to hand it over to you for one of our special superlatives, the Lost Bardo Buddy Award. Um, Now we know Eric has not watched Lost, but I think you've kind of gotten it down to a science explaining what we mean here, and I think it'll work.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with Lost, in the later seasons, we're introduced to this sort of it's called a flash sideways, but we come to understand that it's something of a Bardo space. It's a bit of this parallel afterlife that the characters have made for each other, and it's a chance for them to continue living through uh, the things that they have to grow through before they're ready to ultimately move on into whatever the afterlife has to truly hold for them, whatever peace comes in the ultimate afterlife. And so, Randy and I like to speculate about which character in this particular show or this episode might show up in our own personal Bardo. That might be because we connected with this character. We think they'd be a lot of fun to hang out with, because we think they might help us on our personal journey through the Bardo to move on. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to reward our lost Bardo buddy from this episode. Randy, so we have a good example for Eric. I'm going to go to you first.
Sure.
Who's your Bardo buddy?
My Bardo buddy this time, it's not the person that I'm necessarily wanting to hang out with the most, but it's the person who in my afterlife space is going to help me confront, my remaining baggage and the stuff I've got to work on. So I'm going to go with Rickon Hale. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. Um I think there's a genuinely decent person hidden underneath so much affectation and bullshit that he barely knows who he is. So I could imagine him being in my Bardo space in hopes that perhaps I could help connect with him, help him let go of all those layers and just be himself, man. I think that would be a great healing project for me. So, Rickon.
Beautiful. What a big hearted fellow you are. Eric, what about you? Do you have a Bardo buddy to name?
Yeah, I guess I'd have to say Devin. Devin is just,
Nice.
he's just funny and cool and strong, and she'll pick up the pieces where I'm confused or weak or tired, and, I think she'd be the most helpful in such a
Yeah.
situation.
Perfect.
Her relationship with her brother Mark is so good. When she
Yeah.
Yeah.
calls him "milady," like, there's so many great inside jokes like that. It's just great
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, great pick. I was gonna pick her as well. I don't know enough about this character to really speak in depth. I was gonna say
Mhm.
she just seems like she will kick somebody's ass for you, and you need
Yes.
that in life. But so I'll pivot and I'll just say Gemma. For
Yeah,
me, Gemma's the Bardo buddy because it's clear she's got her finger on the pulse. Like she seems like she's like I imagine she might help me wake up, that she might be aware of what's happening, that she might come to a metaphysical progress and realization
yeah.
before I do and be able to help bring me along based on what I saw in this episode. So I'll say Gemma.
Beautiful pick. All right. In our last extra credit section, it's our favorite media lit question. It's the one that we have the most fun talking about. And that is, if you could own one prop from this episode, what would it be and why?
I'll jump in. This episode doesn't necessarily have like a MacGuffin of any kind, a standout. There was
Yeah.
no like uh specific item that carried weight throughout the episode, but there were a few things that caught my eye that were like cool style choices. One in particular, the Christmas sequence,
Hmm.
that room, the notebook she's writing in, and the pen she's writing with. Those two things together, I would love to have in a little like if I had a collectibles display case, those two things together because one, the handwriting, the penmanship looked so chosen. That didn't look like her natural penmanship. You could see the pain, the
Yeah.
anguish of her character in that moment, writing one more stupid, vapid thank you note. Um, so I'd want that notebook, like with that writing from her, from that performance to capture that moment. And the pen, it was just this scratchy, very old school
Hmm.
kind of pointed pen. So those two things together were visually striking. I thought they did a ton to communicate what was happening for the character in that scene. So I'd be happy to have it on display.
I'll go back to mine. I think my 4-key keyboard, I think was really cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
There's no, that's it. That's all you got.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I am an English teacher, and I desperately want to read this paper, All Quiet on the Western Blunt,
Love that.
that one of the undergrad students wrote.
I wouldn't be surprised if Dan didn't write that because Dan loves to write all that stuff, you know? Yeah, it's a good question. I wonder if it probably is a written paper by Dan. That's what he loves to do.
So I've got to go with that. All Quiet on the Western Blunt. I've got to
Yeah,
read this paper. I'm gonna put it in my display case and cherish it forever.
Yeah. Hopefully it's got some actual grading notes from
yeah.
Mark for you as well.
That would be the dream for sure.
Yeah. Excellent pick. Excellent pick. That was a blast.
Well, folks, we did it. Eric, thank you again for being so giving of your time. It was really a pleasure to sit down and chat with you and giving us some insight behind the scenes to a show uh, that we really love. There are a lot of fans out there who really love it, and Chris hasn't watched the whole series yet, but Eric, I am certainly hoping I get to see a lot of Severance wins at the Emmys.
Yeah,
Keeping my fingers crossed.
yeah. Yeah, you never know. It's just like we're saying from season 1 to season 2, season 1 wasn't really as big as we thought it was gonna be, then season 2 is way bigger, but you never know until you get there to what's gonna
Hmm.
happen. We'll see.
Eric, thanks you so much for joining us. Wonderful to meet you tonight. I know you and
Nice
Randy have
meeting
already
you.
spent some time together, but lovely chatting with you. Maybe I'll see you on a set someday if I'm
Yes,
so lucky.
be great.
Yeah. Wonderful to meet
Come
you.
over to Severance.
Don't tease me. Listen, folks, thank you to the podlings at home for listening as always. It is a pleasure to have you in the classroom with us. If you want to find more of Media Lit, if you like what you heard tonight and you're curious for more, go online and just search Media/Lit or Media Lit Pod in your favorite web browser, and you're going to find us in places like YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter. Give us a follow, give us a rating if you have the time. We'll take your positive praise, we'll take your constructive feedback. We're here for it. We just love to hear from our podlings. And in that vein, don't forget the email inbox is always open. We are media.slash.lit@gmail.com. And our website is linked in the show notes. So check us out there too. You'll find all sorts of behind the scenes goodies and episodes in the vault.
Perfect. Chris, thank you so much for plugging the pod. But where can folks find you and the rest of your work out in the world?
Yeah. So besides Media Lit, I'm also the co-host of Batman by the Numbers on the Pop Break podcast feed for the popbreak.com. It's the year of Superman. You've heard me talking about this since January, but I'm still on the Man of Steel. Aside from podcasts, I'm also an actor and a voice actor. I'm a father and a husband. You can find me doing those things on Instagram or Blue Sky at Kris_Ingersoll. And that's Chris spelled like Kringle.
And I'm your host, Randy Elaine. You can find me on social media by finding Media Lit. Find Media Lit first, and if you want to follow me, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me an email. Would love to hear things that you loved or hated about an episode or a favorite scene we didn't get to cover. Would love to be responding to more and more of those emails on the pod. And as for where else you can find me, you can also find me on thepopbreak.com, where I am one of the co-hosts of Pod of Doom, a Black Sabbath appreciation podcast. We recently put together an emergency farewell tribute to one Ozzy Osbourne, and we are winding down and prepping for the next project. So we will see you over there. Thanks again for your time, and we'll see you soon.